Life often feels like a battle, a struggle against forces both seen and unseen. We find ourselves tangled in moments of uncertainty, with the weight of worries pressing down on us. Yet, in the midst of this turmoil, there is a quiet and unshakable truth. Everything will be fine. This is not a mere wishful thinking or an empty phrase. It's a profound reality that speaks to the core of our existence. Beyond the noise of our thoughts and the shadows of our doubts, there is a divine assurance that guides us through our pain and confusion. In those times when we feel most lost, when our hearts ache and our spirits seem broken, there is a comforting reminder that God will heal your soul. Our lives may not always unfold according to our plans or desires, but there is a deep and abiding peace in knowing that God is at work within us. The healing of the soul is not instantaneous, nor is it always visible, but it is real. The wounds we carry, both seen and unseen, are known to the Creator, and He is faithful to bring restoration to our hearts. So, as you stand here today, carry with you the promise that no matter the storm you face or the darkness you walk through, everything will be fine. Trust in the quiet work of healing that is taking place, often beyond your awareness, and know that God is faithfully mending what is broken. It may take time, and it may require patience, but His healing touch is as sure as the dawn. Rest in that truth, for your soul is not forgotten. In the tapestry of our lives, there are threads of joy and sorrow, moments of light and dark. At times it seems as though the darkness is far more overwhelming, clouding the horizon and leaving us lost in the storm. In these moments of struggle, there is a simple but profound truth that we must remember. Trusting in divine healing is the path that leads us to true peace. It is a curious thing, this notion of peace, for it does not come in the way we might expect. We often think of peace as the absence of struggle, the quiet after the storm. But true peace, the kind that heals the soul, is not found in escaping the struggles of life. It is found within them. It is the quiet assurance that no matter how tumultuous the journey may be, there is a guiding hand, a force greater than our own, that works within the very heart of our pain. This is the divine healing we must come to trust. When life brings its trials, it often feels as though we are being consumed by them. We wrestle with our fears, our doubts, and our griefs, thinking that we must somehow overcome them on our own. But in truth, the very nature of divine healing is that it asks us to surrender, not in weakness but in strength. It asks us to let go of the need to control every moment, every outcome, and to trust that in the grand design, all things work together for good. God's healing does not always come in the form we expect. It may not be an immediate cure or a swift solution to our problems. Healing may arrive slowly, in whispers rather than roars, and sometimes it may come in the form of deepening our ability to endure. But with each passing day, as we trust in God's promise, we begin to see the healing take shape, not only in our circumstances, but within ourselves. Our hearts, once broken and weary, begin to mend. The burdens we carry become lighter, not because they have disappeared, but because we no longer carry them alone. Peace does not mean an end to suffering. Rather, it is the acceptance of it with the assurance that it will not have the final word. Life's struggles, however painful, become moments where we grow, not in spite of our wounds, but through them. The peace that comes from trusting in divine healing is a deep, abiding peace that settles in the soul, even when the world around us remains unsettled. As you walk through the trials of your life, remember that God is with you, working within your pain to bring healing in ways that are often beyond your understanding. Trust that He knows the depth of your struggles, and trust that He is never distant, even when it feels as though the weight of the world is pressing down upon you. In the quiet surrender to His will, you will find a peace that surpasses understanding, a peace that heals the soul and brings rest to the weary heart. So, in your moments of struggle, do not be afraid. Trust in the divine healing that is always at work, even when you cannot see it. Trust that everything will be fine, For God is ever faithful, and his healing touch will restore what is broken in his perfect time. Faith is a curious and mysterious thing. It is not simply the belief in something unseen, but the very strength that carries us through life's trials. In moments of deep despair, when the road ahead seems shrouded in darkness, it is faith that whispers the gentle assurance that everything will be fine. It is this faith that anchors our souls and guides us toward the promise of divine restoration. It is not an abstract concept or a mere hopeful wish. It is the living reality that sustains us, even when we cannot see the way. We are often tempted to measure the strength of our faith by the immediacy of results. We want quick answers, immediate solutions, and visible signs that things are improving. Yet, the power of faith does not reside in the speed at which our circumstances change, but in the unwavering confidence that, regardless of what we face, God is always with us. It is the belief that, even in the midst of suffering and uncertainty, everything will be fine. Not necessarily in the way we imagine, but in the way that God intends. Embracing this promise requires a shift in perspective. It asks us to step beyond our fears and doubts, to trust in the goodness of God's plans, even when those plans seem obscured by hardship. The power of faith lies in its ability to look beyond the present moment, beyond the pain or the struggle, and to see that there is a greater purpose at work. It is in this trust that we find peace, for we know that we are not alone in our journey. There is a divine presence that walks beside us, a quiet assurance that guides us through the storm. Faith is not about denying the difficulties we face or pretending that life is always easy. It is rather the recognition that God is with us in every circumstance and that his promises are sure. The promise that everything will be fine is not a denial of the pain we experience, but an invitation to see beyond it. It is the recognition that, in time, our wounds will be healed, our hearts will be restored, and we will emerge from the trials stronger and more whole. When we embrace faith, we surrender to the reality that our lives are not governed by mere chance or circumstance, but by a loving and purposeful Creator who is deeply invested in our well-being. The promise that everything will be fine is not a superficial optimism, but a deep-seated confidence that, in the end, God's will for our lives will be fulfilled. His plan for us is good, and even when we cannot see the full picture, we can trust that he is working for our good. The power of faith is transformative. It does not simply change our circumstances, it changes us. It shifts our hearts, softening our resistance, opening our eyes to the beauty that lies even in the most difficult moments. It teaches us that peace is not found in the absence of struggle, but in the presence of trust. And as we embrace the promise that everything will be fine, we begin to experience that peace in our souls, a peace that surpasses all understanding and carries us through life's most challenging moments. So, no matter where you are today, hold fast to the power of faith. Embrace the promise that everything will be fine. Know that, in God's perfect timing and in his perfect way, he is at work in your life, healing your soul and guiding you to the peace that only faith can bring. Life is a journey, one that is often fraught with unexpected twists, deep valleys and sharp turns. As we navigate through the landscape of our experiences, we encounter moments of profound joy as well as deep sorrow. Along this path, we all carry some form of brokenness, wounds from past mistakes, disappointments, and moments when we have been hurt by others. Yet, in the midst of our fractured selves, there is a promise of healing, a promise that God does not leave us to face our struggles alone. He is present, not just in the joyous moments, but especially in the broken ones, working patiently and lovingly to embrace your journey. You must first acknowledge the brokenness that you carry. It is easy to mask our wounds, to pretend that everything is fine when deep down we know it is not. But to truly allow God to heal us, we must bring those broken pieces to him. He does not expect us to be whole before we come to him. In fact, it is in our brokenness that He meets us most intimately. God does not heal from a distance, like a doctor prescribing a remedy from afar. He heals us up close, with compassion, care, and an understanding of the deepest parts of our soul. God's healing is not instantaneous, nor is it always painless. It is a slow, deliberate process, much like the careful mending of a fragile piece of pottery. The cracks in our lives do not simply disappear overnight, and there are times when we may wonder if we will ever truly feel whole again. Yet, in the hands of the Creator, there is a quiet, steady restoration that takes place. Each day that we trust Him, each moment that we surrender our brokenness to Him, He begins to heal us from the inside out. The scars of our past are not erased, but they are transformed. What was once a mark of hurt becomes a testimony of God's faithfulness and grace. To embrace your journey is to accept that healing does not mean the absence of pain. Rather, it means the presence of hope. It means the trust that, though we may walk through seasons of difficulty, there is a purpose to our pain. God uses the brokenness in our lives to shape us, to refine us, and to make us more like Him. Our journey is not a detour or a mistake. It is the very path through which God's healing work is accomplished. The healing of our souls is often a quiet process, one that is not always recognized in the moment. But as we look back, we begin to see how far we have come. The weight of the past lifts, the sharpness of old wounds dulls, and we find ourselves standing stronger than before. Embracing your journey means trusting that every part of your story, the joyful moments and the painful ones, has been used by God to bring you to a place of greater wholeness. In your life, as you walk through the inevitable seasons of brokenness, remember that you are not alone. God is with you, healing you, step by step, day by day. Trust that, in His perfect timing, He will restore what has been broken and make you whole again. Embrace your journey, for it is in the process of healing that you become the person you were always meant to be. Pain, though unwelcome and often feared, is one of the most transformative experiences we encounter in this life. It has a way of laying bare the deepest parts of our being, exposing the wounds that we often try to hide or ignore. In these moments of suffering, it may seem as though we are abandoned or forgotten, as though the pain is endless and our strength is failing. Yet, within the very heart of this pain, there is a quiet and profound truth. God is at work in our souls. The journey from pain to restoration is not a linear to bring about restoration. It is a winding road, one that is often hard to understand as we walk through it. We long for relief, for the healing to come swiftly, but God's work in our lives is not always immediate. It is deep and thorough, and sometimes it requires time to fully take shape. Pain, when surrendered to God, becomes a tool in His hands, shaping us, refining us, and preparing us for something greater. It is through our suffering that God reaches into our hearts and begins to heal what is broken. He does not remove our pain as if it never existed. Rather, He transforms it. What once seemed like an insurmountable obstacle becomes the very ground upon which we stand taller. The pain is not wasted, it is redeemed. God does not leave us in our pain, but instead uses it to refine our character, to draw us closer to Him, and to deepen our trust in His perfect plan for our lives. Restoration, in this sense, is not simply the end of suffering, it is the transformation that takes place within us as we endure. The soul that once felt heavy and burdened by the weight of pain begins to experience the lightness of God's grace. The scars we bear become a testimony of God's faithfulness, of His ability to take what was broken and make it whole again. Through His restorative work, we are not only healed, but we are also made more like Him. It is important to understand that this work of restoration does not happen apart from us. It requires our willingness to surrender, to trust, and to be shaped by God's hand. In our pain, we are invited to let go of our own attempts to fix ourselves, to stop clinging to the idea that we can control the outcome. It is in this surrender that God's healing power is most fully realized. He works in ways we cannot always see, but He is always at work, mending the pieces of our hearts and souls that we cannot repair on our own. The process of moving from pain to restoration is not easy, and there will be moments when it feels like the darkness will never lift. But in those moments, remember that God's work is still in progress. Even when the healing feels slow, even when the road seems long, trust that God is faithful. He does not leave us in our pain, but instead walks with us, leading us toward a future where we will see His restorative work. In the end, it is not the absence of pain that defines restoration, but the presence of peace. It is the quiet assurance that, no matter what we face, God is working in our souls to bring about something far greater than we can imagine. And though we may never fully understand how or why pain enters our lives, we can trust that God is using it to restore us, to make us whole, and to draw us closer to His perfect loving will. In our fast-paced world, where instant gratification is often the expectation, it is easy to forget the value of patience. Yet, when it comes to healing and renewal, patience is not merely a virtue, it is an essential part of the process. In times of pain, grief, or weariness, we long for quick relief, for the storm to pass swiftly, and for our wounds to be healed immediately. But God, in His wisdom, knows that healing requires time. It is not a rushed affair, but a careful and deliberate work that unfolds gradually, much like the quiet growth of a tree from a tiny seed. Patience in the process of healing means trusting that God is at work even when we cannot see the results right away. There are seasons in life when the journey seems painfully slow, and we may feel as though we are stuck in our pain, waiting for change. It is in these times that the temptation is strongest to take matters into our own hands, to force the healing, or to try to speed up the process. But to rush the work that God is doing in our souls is to miss the deeper, more meaningful transformation that takes place when we allow time to do its work. God's healing and renewal are not superficial. They do not merely cover over the pain, as one might patch a hole in a wall. Instead, His healing goes to the very core of who we are. It is in the quiet moments of waiting, when we have no choice but to trust, that the healing truly takes root. Like the slow and steady growth of a plant reaching for the light, so too does our soul grow and change as we allow God to do His work. The process may seem long, and at times it may even feel as though we are not progressing at all. But rest assured, every moment of patience in this process is a step toward greater wholeness. It is important to remember that healing does not mean the complete absence of struggle. It means the ability to endure, to find peace even in the midst of difficulty. God's work in us is not about eliminating all pain, but about teaching us how to live with hope, how to find strength in our weakness, and how to trust Him when we cannot see the way forward. Patience in this process is an act of faith, a declaration that we trust that God knows what is best for us, even when it seems like the road ahead is long and uncertain. In our impatience, we may want to skip the waiting, to rush to the end of the story. But it is in the waiting that we are formed, that we are shaped and made ready for the restoration that is coming. Each moment of patience builds something deeper within us. Strength, resilience, and a deeper understanding of God's love and faithfulness. Time is not an enemy of healing, it is its partner, working alongside God's perfect plan to restore us to wholeness. So, in the midst of your waiting, take heart. Allow the process of healing and renewal to unfold in its own time. Trust that God is not idle in your pain, but is at work in ways that you may not fully understand. Patience is not the absence of struggle, but the active, peaceful trust that in God's perfect timing, all things will be made new. And as you wait, remember that each day, each moment of patience is a step closer to the restoration and renewal that He has promised. As you journey through pain and healing, remember that patience is not just a waiting game, it is a trust in God's perfect timing. Though the road may seem long, each step brings you closer to renewal. Trust that in every moment, God is working within you, transforming your brokenness into wholeness. Embrace the process, knowing that His healing is real and His promise is sure. Everything will be fine, for He is faithful to restore your soul.